Why am I a little nervous? Uh-oh. I'm a little nervous now. Like, what? Hi, guys. Welcome back to Cake Radio by CakeDive. My name is CakeDive, and I am here with the first episode of season 2 of the podcast. This is a big thing because one, the girls didn't think we was gonna get to season 2, but two, this is also going to be the second episode, but the first episode to debut on the newly minted Cake Radio YouTube channel on top of your favorite podcast platforms. And last but definitely not least, I have a very special guest with me. They are my other half of a group that we have called Two Better Friends. They are also one of my frequent collaborators and voice actors on various different short films and projects, including Viewers Like You, Disturbia, Icons, Attack of the Skits. I could go on. I'm so excited to welcome LeoDoesVoices to the podcast. Welcome to Cake Radio.
It's great to be here. I'm so
Yeah, this is
excited.
kind of
I'm
like
so
crazy
happy.
because we've talked about having you on the podcast for a minute, but like, who would have thought that it would be now in 2024 and we would be talking about a horror movie?
Honestly, I think the best way to start it off.
I mean, yeah, because that's like your favorite thing. Well, okay, weren't we supposed to be starting? We were supposed to be starting like an episode. We were originally going to collab together for an episode for Twilight because we were binging the series of Twilight. Remember that? And then
I do.
we stopped at like the last film because we were just like, yeah, we not feeling. I don't. We don't. We both of us did not want to do part 2. We didn't want to finish part 2. So
It got less camp and it just wasn't
it
enjoyable
got
towards the
less
end.
camp. It got so less camp. But we are going to be talking about
Mhm.
something that is very camp, and that is the movie that is out now called The First Omen. For those who don't know what The First Omen is, it is a new horror movie that is now playing in your local movie theaters. That is a prequel to The Omen. So that movie, the original movie, came out in like what, the 70s, and there have been
Mhm.
numerous sequels. Video to like there was a reboot or like remake. There was a TV show. This is a franchise that has been, through the ringer for a minute. It's been 18 years since the last entry, and we're back. So me and Leo decided to go see it. We are going to be
Mhm.
discussing our thoughts. We're going to rate it hot or flop, and then elaborate with spoilers. So we're starting with a non-spoiler review, and we'll let you guys know when we teeter into spoilers. And let's just hop into it. I think so.
All right.
Do you want to go first and talk about like non-spoiler review of how you feel about this movie? Because you just saw it today as a filming.
Yes. Yes, I did. I actually just got home like 30 minutes ago from
Mm-hmm.
seeing it. Um Starting off, the movie at the beginning, I really liked the beginning, how it started off with. The scenes we were given.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked it. I feel like it was a good way to start the movie. And you know, I think the best way I can describe it is that it's very slow in the beginning, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think slow to the point where it becomes monotonous and boring. It kind of builds up, and then towards the second and third half of the movie, that's when stuff really starts to just go crazy, and that's when I feel like it really starts to pack a punch more. It's really, I feel the pacing was perfect in my opinion. I feel the pacing was really good. I was never bored. I was constantly interested. I liked where it was going. Um, I really liked a lot of the acting. The acting I feel was a strong suit in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Especially interesting because one of the characters is a little girl, and kids in movies most of the time are really seen as not being that great at acting.
But also,
Unfortunately, just
you like
because they're
hate
children.
kids. Like you hate kids too. So that
Okay,
doesn't happen.
but that doesn't affect my
Can I
reviews of
air you out
movies
on the
though.
podcast? Because like you like let me air you out on the
Okay.
podcast because you really like can't
Oh
stand the
boy.
kid. Like one thing about Leo is like they can't stand kids. Like just despises them. Like for me,
Mhm.
um, I know for me when I like get older, I would love to have a kid and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, Leo gonna be the
Mhm.
uncle, but like you can't stand kids down. Like it's kind of hilarious to me.
The only children I can stand is my nephew and niece. They are the only ones who get a pass at the moment. And any of my friends' future kids, that they get passes too. But any other scenario, I'm not a fan of children.
Mm.
I do not have the patience. I do not have, I just don't got the time for it.
I
But
don't have the
getting
patience
back
either, but it's
into,
like right now. But get into the movie. Get back to this movie. Get back to this
yeah,
review.
get back to the movie. But the acting was a strong suit. Even the girl who was playing like the younger girl in the movie, I feel
Mm-hmm.
she did good. Granted, I don't really feel like she was given much, like she didn't really have to deal with like much emotion,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel she still handled the dialogue really well that she was given. In moments where she was scared, she seemed it, and it was good on that front. Acting was great.
Mm-hmm.
Cinematography I think is really one of the strong suits in my opinion. I
Mm-hmm.
really like how so many shots in the movie. It kind of had the vibe of the original movie. Like for example, without spoilers, there's like a scene where she's like sitting, our main character, she's sitting on like a little like statue staircase or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the shot is like so far away and how it kind of like zooms in a little bit, it reminds me of scenes like I've seen in like the original Exorcist movie or even in the original Omen. Like I really like the cinematography in this movie. I feel like there's a lot of strong shots. There's a lot of style to it. It feels like they were really trying to not exactly like copy, but replicate that feeling of the original to, um, show that this is a new movie, even though it's a prequel. It's a new movie, but it's still taking inspiration from the source material that it was based off of. Uh, and I really enjoyed it in that aspect. It was a lot of stuff I noticed. Plays with darkness a lot too in this movie, and that is one thing that I'm terrified of. There's a scene that we won't spoil,
Mm-hmm.
but
No,
I
we
honestly
can talk
feel it
about
is
it in the
really,
spoil aspect for sure.
yeah, yeah. But I feel it is one of the strongest scary scenes I've seen in a while. It reminded me of a scene from like Insidious Chapter 3, which was an all right movie,
Mm-hmm.
but a really strong scene in that movie to me is like when like uh it deals with like turning off the lights at one point in that movie. And that
Mm-hmm.
scene to this day still freaks me the hell out because I have a rational fear of darkness. I
Mm-hmm.
always am imagining something in the darkness moving that I can't see,
Mm-hmm.
or something turning off the lights and being in the room with me. So there's a scene in this movie where they do that and it lingers for so fucking long. It's terrifying. And that scene really had me freaking out in my chair in the theater because I was trying to like get close to the screen to almost see if there was anything moving, but I was also too afraid that I was gonna get jump scared. So I was still like trying to like hold my head back but also look closer. So it was a really good scene. One of the
Mm-hmm.
strongest scenes in the movie, in my opinion. Um so yeah, I feel there's a lot of good horror in this movie. I wouldn't say they have the tagline on one of the posters, which a lot of movies do this. I know the Evil Dead remake did it,
Oh,
which is a good movie,
I'm gonna
but
dig into that for sure. I'm gonna dig
yeah,
into
it's
that
like it was like
tagline.
the scariest movie this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree. Granted it's only April and I haven't seen too many horror movies that came out this year, but
Mm-hmm.
like it's not. It is not the scariest horror movie of the year. I don't agree with that at all. I definitely think that there are great horror scenes in it, especially the scene I just said. But, I don't feel there's a sense of this overwhelming dread. Like I wasn't, ooh, excuse me. I wasn't like sitting in my chair, like freaking out over everything. Some things were more just, I feel cool or interesting rather than scary to see.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just like the effect work, the cinematography and stuff like that. So, horror was good. Again, it was scary at points. I wasn't sitting there like not scared at any point, but yeah, the tagline "scariest movie of the year." No, no, I don't agree. I don't agree.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, horror. The movie was great. Cinematography was great. Acting was great. Honestly, I came out of it really liking it. I really
Mm-hmm.
did. I think for a prequel to a movie that is like 50 years old,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't interested in it at all. I remember until I saw the reviews coming out, I thought this movie was awful. I thought it was going to be terrible. I didn't have any expectations. But then when the reviews came out, and yeah, maybe I still would have went to go see it with my I still would have went to go see it, but like I wasn't expecting much. But then when I saw the reviews come out and I saw that it was actually getting pretty good reception,
Mm-hmm.
it instantly made me way more interested to go see it because now most movies that come out nowadays like prequels or sequels to like old franchises, for example Exorcist Believer that came out that
Oh.
deals with like religious themes as well, it
Mm-hmm.
was so very very bad, just a very bad movie, and I was expecting this to be the same. They're just
Mm-hmm.
trying to cash in on a old horror franchise that hasn't had much movement in it for a while. But I really do think that this was a good movie. And the director, I've seen her other work, Channel Zero, a series on sci-fi that was based off like creepypastas that they
Mm-hmm.
turned into like full seasons on television.
Mm-hmm.
She worked on season 3, which is honestly one of my favorites of that show. So, I think that she has a bright future ahead of her because this is her full film, like
This
full
is her
feature film
directorial
directorial debut.
debut. Yeah.
And I think she did a great job. She really, I feel, knows how to work with um psychological horror, especially when it comes to like again playing with the darkness and stuff like that. I feel that she really excels in that, and
Mm-hmm.
I am going to be interested in um what she brings out in the future. But for this movie, I would definitely say it's a lot stronger than I thought. I would
Mm-hmm.
honestly, my rating for it, I definitely think it's hot. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's hot. I don't think it's a flop. I would definitely rate it, in my opinion, like a 7 out of 10 personally,
Really.
um, because yeah, and it's again, it's not the scariest movie ever, so that's why it's like a 7 because I have to dock points for that. Because when I go to see a
Mm-hmm.
horror movie, for the most part, I want to be scared for a good portion. Again, I was scared for some scenes, but I was a lot more interested with
Mm-hmm.
this movie and where it was going than scary. And my final point to end it off with, before I let you give your thoughts, is there's a twist in the story, which again we will get into spoilers about, but
Mm-hmm.
I will say the twist I could see coming from a mile away. It was not surprising to me
Oh,
in the
me
slightest.
too.
I did,
Absolutely.
but yeah. So basically, that's my feelings. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see what she does in the future with her future movies, and yeah, I thought it was a good time.
Okay. I'm kind of scared to give mine because mine kind of comes off a little bit negative, but but y'all walk with me.
Nah, nah,
So
nah. I want to hear you. No, I want to hear
for
it.
me, and I really had to think about it before we start recording because I remember like this morning, like thinking about the movie, and I'm like, ooh, like I'm starting to like it less than when I did when I was in the theater. But for me, also like before I even jump in, let me ask like how you because you touched on the other films. What's your like exposure
Mhm.
to the franchise? Have you seen like all the films? Like how far have you like delved into the Omen franchise?
So I've definitely seen like quite a bit. I saw the
Mm-hmm.
original, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that for a long time. I also saw the Omen 2. I did not see the Omen 3, where Damien's like an adult and he's running for president and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
I never caught it. The fourth one, the fourth one's really, really bad. Yeah, I haven't watched the TV series. I know there was like a one season TV series called Damien that
Mm-hmm.
came out. I didn't see that. And I did see the Omen remake, which is literally just like a one-to-one remake of the original to the point where they literally credited the original writer and didn't credit the guy who wrote the remake because his script was just so similar, so they just credited the original writer. And so yeah, the remake's just completely useless. It literally just reminds me of the Psycho remake with Vince
Mm-hmm.
Vaughn, just completely unnecessary. But yeah, so the film series, it's so weird calling it a franchise because honestly, everything after the first one really isn't good. So, it's kind of interesting because at least like other movies like Nightmare on Elm Street, they have sequels that are at least good and that you can point out and be like, oh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
The Omen, the original is really like the Omen, well, this one to me as well. So like, I mean, yeah, I have a good exposure to it, and like I said, most of it has been negative besides the original because most of them are just kind of bad after that.
Right. For me, my exposure, and this is just me transitioning to my review. For me, my exposure was literally like the day before I saw it, and I saw it this like Friday, so literally yesterday, the 5th, as of recording. Um, the night before I went to go see it, I watched like the original Omen film from like 1976, and I just called it a day.
Mhm.
I didn't want to like sit and like binge the entire series because I didn't want to fall for the okey doke that I did with Saw. Because I remember,
Mhm.
this, but one of my friends was like, got me to see the first Saw film, and they're like, oh, like you should watch the other ones. Like I warn you that it's very much like body horror galore. Not gonna say the other term for it because the YouTube gonna pull this shit.
Right.
They gonna pull the video.
Right.
Um, but I was like, you know what? Like, let me stomach it and just tune in. And I watched all 9 films before the 10th one came out. Baby, that was a whirlwind. I was like, I'm not gonna do this with less films with The Omen. I'm just gonna watch this first one because I know this one's a prequel. The first Omen's a prequel to this one, and just kind of call it a day. And that's what I did. And I actually like the original Omen film a lot. I think for that one, like. I think it's actually kind of hilarious. Like it's like that campy
Yeah,
like '70s horror that
yeah,
it doesn't take itself too seriously. Um,
right.
but I remember before even having exposure to this franchise, I remember seeing the trailers that they were doing for this one and being like intrigued. It seemed I really like that first like teaser trailer they dropped in, which it's kind of like moving in reverse. I think that was really
Hmm.
like that was really cool. At least to me, like one thing about me, I love a little artistic. I love an artistic ass like marketing campaign. So I thought that was really cool. Touching on additionally for me because just for the podcast sake. Um, again for me like I run ZC and Ticket, so I have a lot of like contacts with people who are in the industry or people who at least are like people who know people in the industry or have like that contact to reach out and see some of the data. So for me, I remember hearing that leading up to the release, like we didn't hear anything about the test screenings for this. They weren't really screening this to critics just yet, and it seemed like they were really
Hmm.
waiting to the last minute, which usually would suggest that like this is a bad film. That because like usually studios will hold like films to their hands and avoid like critics altogether if the film is just absolutely horrible. Um, but me and the people who are in the industry who I was communicating with were very confused by that, because if that was the case, why were they announcing that they were going to be doing like 35 millimeter screenings for this movie? So for it to be like for them to do like a really artistic push but also hold the reviews was very strange. I think now that the film is out and now that we've seen a lot of the reaction stuff like that, it's getting like mixed to positive reactions. Like it's getting strong reactions from critics, but I know with general audiences like it's been very mixed. It got a C cinema score, which is like
Hmm.
it's a little bit rough for
Right.
horror, but like it's kind of
Yeah.
it's alright for horror. But for me personally, I think it was because Disney was holding their like investor call, and they were having that huge issue with like um the like activist investor who was like, oh, like we need to get our like activist investors like on the board of Disney because they're not running things. And then he did an interview like before the vote was supposed to happen, and was saying like, oh, they have too much like black people and like women in these films. Girl, you just costed you
Mm-hmm.
costed your whole like vote. Like everyone who was willing to vote for you was willing to
Right.
like just shut down. Because why would you say that
Yeah.
out loud? Mind you, that's a white
And
man, so that was an old white man
yeah,
who
and
tweeted
like
it. So
yeah, and like isn't that the guy? I'm pretty sure isn't that like the father of the girl who played Katara in M. Night Shyamalan's like Avatar
yes,
movie?
yes, I
Yeah.
was hearing that
Yup.
around.
Yup.
Yep. So
Yup.
very
Mm-hmm.
interesting things on his
Mm-hmm.
part, but he lost the vote, and they were like, I'm assuming that was happening. I think they just didn't want any negative press to happen like before that vote was supposed to be held. So I think that's why they just held it to their chest. Um, but for me, because girl, I'm delaying my damn review. This is kind of like whoa, like let me just hop into it. Let me dig into like what I really liked. Now, what I really liked was kind of a lot that was similar to you. I really liked the direction and the cinematography. This was like, while it's not the most terrifying film of the year, absolutely not. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like even some of the other films that we've gotten that are in this genre, like Immaculate, were a little bit scarier. Well, actually, I take this back. I think there probably will be scarier, but I think there's other films that have come
Mm-hmm.
out this year that were horror based that are like kind of close, if not more scarier than this film. But it definitely was
Mm-hmm.
scary. But the cinematography and the direction was like incredible. I think that there was just a lot of like, again, as you said, there was a lot of great shots in this movie that were like, whoa, like you wouldn't really expect this to happen in a prequel of like a franchise that has existed for like what 50 or so years. Especially coming
Mm-hmm.
from as you touched on films like The Exorcist Believer, which I haven't seen because I know that was shit was ass. So I'm like, let me not waste my time. Just stuff like that, so that like really just kind of is there for like the legacy of it rather than like
Right.
the true artistic love that comes with bringing back a franchise like that. Um, for me, my favorite shots in the film, which I'm probably going to touch on more in the spoiler review, were I like the shot in which the main leading lady came and like arrived in Rome, and she was like in the car, and it was kind of showing this very like it was showing all the sights of Rome, and then it like cuts to like that loud jump scare of like the car being hit by like the protesters. I think that shot
Yeah.
was really well. This scene I'm going to touch on. This next scene I'm going to talk about is definitely going to touch on in spoiler review. But it
Mhm.
was like the scene um, involving the like pregnancy that had that body horror shot. I think that one was probably like the
Mm,
scariest scene for me. Um,
yes.
and that was a really great shot. Like that was a really great moment in the film. And then there were just a few other shots that I'm like blanking on, but I'll probably touch on once we start really digging into the movie that I thought were really
Right.
well done. Additionally, I love the costumes here. I think them going for like a gothic
Yes.
feel was like very, it was perfect for a film like this. And it also looked like a little bit more expensive than like I was expecting. Like you would like this was a $30 million budgeted film, and I thought that it probably would have been more expensive if it was for like based on the costumes, because those costumes looked
Right.
great. You don't really see that in
Yeah,
like
they
horror
did.
movies like that. And I think, and this is I also will agree. I like the casting and how like the cast like acted.
Mhm.
And in general, I also really like the horror. There was a lot of moments here that were like really well executed.
Mhm.
Um, and for me, in all honesty, I think the part that really kind of like was like, ooh, I don't know if I like this, was I think the connections that it was trying to do with, tying it back to the Omen as a franchise. I think that I feel like there's part of me that like really kind of wishes that this was like an independent film, or like this wasn't as like as like hinging itself so much on like The Omen as a film. But there's also another part of me that wishes that like they kind of stuck more to it. So I'm like conflicted in certain cases, because I think the first half of the film does like kind of does a lot of little things to tie itself to the original film in ways that's like, oh, like of course, like I definitely appreciated watching the first film before
Mhm.
seeing this one, because I'm like, oh, like this, I appreciated seeing these things a lot more, or like I understood why
Yeah.
they did this compared to if I was just like a random person who just was who their first exposure was this film. Um, and I think that also is probably one of the pitfalls for this film. I don't think that this film is for like, I don't think this film is for the locals. Like, I feel like this film is for like those who are at least like somewhat aware of like The Omen as a franchise and know how it goes. Cause like, there's a lot of
Mhm.
moments here that are like, oh, like you kind of need to be like not an Omen fan, but at least someone who has had exposure to that franchise to like really enjoy this. Which I guess kind
Right.
of explains why the audience scores for this haven't been that great. Um,
Yeah.
so there's that, and again, I also feel like some of the connections it made, especially with like the later ending half, and how it kind of
Mhm.
preps itself to kind of have like potential future entries, um, was a little bit
Yeah, that's something I
that
want to
was a little
discuss.
bit
Yeah.
weak for me, and I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. Which but
Yeah.
I'll dig into that more with the spoilers.
Yeah, and the spoilers. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
For me, I honestly I keep kicking between like hot or flop, because like I low key
Mhm.
wanted to give. I remember like coming out of the movie, I was like, I don't know. I was looking, and like as I kept thinking about it, I was like, ooh, I'm gonna give. I was like, oh, I was about to give this a flop, because I'm like, ooh, there's just a
Mhm.
lot of like things that are really like, ooh. But like now that I've kind of sat with it, and I made the decision before I hopped on the recording. So, but I think
Mhm.
I'm think I'm gonna give this a hot rating, and I
Mhm.
think
Like a very simmer.
I think I would have give this a hot. And I know, and for me, I go off of a letterbox rating because I'm fucking weird. So I'm gonna give this like a 3 or like a 3.5 out of 5. Um,
Okay.
so it's because again, I think it's enjoyable. There's a lot of good things here,
Yeah.
but I think that there's like a lot of stuff that's holding it back from being like great. And I know a lot of people are
Yeah.
probably gonna go in and like love this film, like,
Mhm.
but I also think there's gonna be people who are gonna be like, So for me, I'm gonna give it a hot, but it's like barely a hot. Like it's kind of like lukewarm.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because essentially we have like the same rating, like
Hmm.
7 out of 10. But like, but I feel like even then though, it's like even if it's like the same rating, we both have like different like outlooks on that rating. Like,
Hmm.
like a 7 to me is like, oh, that's really good. But that 7 to you,
Yep.
it's like it's all
Yeah,
right and
for
stuff
me
like
it's a
that.
lot different, and I've had a lot of people have
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
There's a lot of people who actually give me a lot of shit on that actually, because like I'll be like, oh, like a 3 out of 5 is like like for me, I feel like
That's like,
giving something like a 3 out of 5 is like the worst thing that you could be, because I feel like it's better to like be great or like good or like horrible. But I feel like if you're
right.
just like in that area of midness, then it's kind of like, what the hell happened here? It's like, what happened? What went down? What went wrong to like prevent from to make your film like okay? So
Right.
for me, I think I actually, now that I'm like talking about this, I'll give this a 3.5. Um, I'll give this a 3.5, and I'll give the original Omen film like a 4, because I feel like I enjoyed the original Omen film a lot more than this, but I think this one is like
Right.
close. Um, but that's our ratings, y'all. We both gave it high, but let's dig into these. Actually, let's have a little brief intermission and talk about these previews first. Let's talk about
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah,
trailers
yeah.
that we got in our trailer reels and just discuss them real quick.
Right.
So, which ones did you? Let's kind of see which ones we both had in our reels first, and then try to discuss them commonly. Because we
Right.
probably got some different trailers, but I think it's probably similar. So
Yeah.
for me, if I remember correctly, because it's been a day or so, I remember getting um, the A Quiet Place Day One trailer. So I got Quiet Place Day One, um, Abigail, Back to
Mm-hmm.
Black, that Amy Winehouse biopic that we get
Oh,
in,
jeez. Oh, jeez.
and imaginary, not imaginary. Why did I say imaginary? Tarot. Tarot is what I meant to say. Tarot,
Hmm.
and I think we had a couple of other ones, but they were like more general entertainment ones, like the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes,
Hmm.
and like I think that's as much as I remember, honestly.
Right. Um, yeah, we had some similar ones. I had Abigail. That
Hmm.
trailer showed up. I also had Tarot. Um, what else did surprisingly, Borderlands,
Oh,
which was interesting. I was like, okay,
I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts on the Borderlands.
we'll get into that.
Okay.
But so we had Borderlands, Tarot, Abigail, and then we also had M. Night Shyamalan's
Oh, the
daughter's
Watchers.
film
Yeah,
coming out.
I also had the
Yes,
Watchers in my trailer
yes,
reel too. Yeah.
yes, yes. And I believe there was like another one, but I don't think it was really anything that important if I don't remember it. It was
Right.
probably just I
We could
unfortunately
just
don't
dig in.
remember.
We could just dig into the ones we know and remember. So
Yeah, 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 yeah.
let me start with your thoughts on Borderlands, because I've actually never. I've had my thoughts, and I've talked to other people about my
Oh
thoughts on
boy.
that trailer. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
All right. I know there's been a lot of like kind of like rewriting history on how people feel about Borderlands. I know
Hmm.
like Borderlands 2 when it came out and for a long time was like the golden standard of like comedy, like kind of like FPS shooters and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And to be honest, yeah, a lot of the humor hasn't aged well when it's literally just like making dick jokes
Hmm.
and again, that was me back then. So I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, I wasn't like that. I didn't think that. I still think that stuff is funny. Like that's just who I am. But yes, the comedy has, especially in the later entries, has definitely it's become more cringy than anything. It's definitely
Hmm.
become kind of like that wacky zany humor. It's like so crazy, and it's like, but it's not edgy anymore because it's 2024.
Yeah.
It's like okay. Um, the movie I already, and it's no offense against well, maybe a little bit of offense because in recent news, Eli Roth has been kind of making
Oh
me
yeah.
mad
No,
a little
no
bit with
shade,
some.
but Eli Roth kind of
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
he need to check out a little
yeah.
bit.
But before all that, I did have a certain level of respect for him. Like
Hmm.
his movies, he knows what movies he makes, and his
Hmm.
movies were just for like gorehounds.
Hmm.
That was what they were for. They weren't masterpieces. He knew what he worked well with. And yes, as much as I don't like certain things he's been saying regarding the war on Palestine and everything that's been happening, um, I have to admit, Thanksgiving I can probably say is one of his actual like movies that is actually really well made and is like
Mm-hmm.
actually like really good from a critical standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
It just engages with all those like cliches and everything and it doesn't like do it in a way where it like doesn't benefit the movie. It's just a perfect like throwback slasher movie.
Thank you, Addison
So you
Ray.
know,
Thank you, Addison Ray, for making Thanksgiving a great movie.
So you know, it's like I had, I should say, a
Mm-hmm.
certain level of respect for him as a director because I knew what he was making. And when I heard he was making Borderlands, my thought was, okay, I guess I can
But
kind of see it.
did you hear about the drama regarding Borderlands though?
Yes. Yes, I have because like he dropped
Yeah.
out
Well,
and then like
they
well he
said he
didn't drop
dropped
out.
out. They the news publications, the trades and
Yeah,
stuff
they
said that he
say.
dropped it.
Yeah.
They said oh
Yeah.
like he was gonna like they were trying to do reshoots and he wanted to go film thing like he was gonna leave for another film which turned out to be Thanksgiving. I personally
Right,
believe,
right,
and
yeah, yeah.
I'll put an allegedly to this because this has not been confirmed publicly,
Allegedly.
but from some of the sources that I have and my personal thoughts, I think he got fired off of Borderlands because the reshoots and like the testing wasn't going well. So I think he that
Right.
happened and he just used Thanksgiving as his little like getaway ticket because obviously it would
Right.
be embarrassing for any director to just be fired off a project and it would be bigger
Mhm.
news for that to happen and not transition to something.
Right.
So there was that. I think he got
Yeah.
fired.
So you know,
Allegedly, I think he got fired. So
yeah, and they brought in Tim Miller to do reshoots, correct? That was the
I
director who
think
they brought
so.
in to do those reshoots, like
I
the
think
director
so.
of Deadpool.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So you know, it's like when he was announced to be directing it at first, I was like, okay, I guess I can see it. You know, gore is a big part of Borderlands. Is well, maybe not like a huge part, but you know, it's like it would fit with
Mm-hmm.
Eli Roth's style. Um, Unfortunately, everything that came out after has not invoked any interest in me whatsoever. I think Kevin Hart as Roland is one of the most miscast roles I've ever seen in my entire life. Like I like yes, Kevin Hart can be a funny guy and I don't doubt that's why they cast him because he's funny and he'll add comedic relief and everything like that. But Roland in the game is completely different from how he's portrayed by Kevin Hart. And
Mm.
it's such a bad miscast. And just the whole cast really. I just you know, like Kate Blanchett, Jamie Lee, and Jack Black. You know, it's all great. Jack Black, I'm not complaining about. Jack Black's a great actor. I'm not gonna hate on him being claptrap. But
Five Nights at
it just,
Freddy's. That's what I'm gonna be.
but it just feels like it wasn't going for accuracy for
Mm-hmm.
the source material. And of course, it doesn't have to be 1-to-1. Like I'm not
Right.
expecting that. But like it really feels it's like how many celebrities can we cast in this movie to drum up interest instead of like actually trying to like make something that kind of resembles the actual game. In all honesty, this shouldn't have been a live action film. This should have been an
Oh,
animated movie,
absolutely.
in my personal opinion.
Absolutely. It should have
Like
been animated,
because
but you know.
yeah, because Borderlands is known for its art style, the cel shaded graphics and everything. I feel if
Mm-hmm.
they had an animated movie, they could have worked with that style so well and made something really interesting and fun. You know, kind of like similar to like the Spider-Verse movies and their art style. I feel like with the Borderlands movie, they could have created something really like interesting and new,
Yeah,
but
but mind
we
you,
wouldn't let that.
like one. This is a Lionsgate movie, and no shade. Like I
Yeah.
love Lionsgate, but we've been hearing rumors that the pocket's a little tight. So
Mm,
I don't know if they would have had the money to like budget for like this to be animated and for it to be like on the level of
right.
something like Spider Verse. Um, and additionally, like I feel like this would have been like low key. I feel like it would have been great if it was like a 2D movie, but we know how like the industry feels about like
Mm,
2D movies.
right.
For me, like from my perspective, I don't have that. Like it's kind of interesting how like with this, just like with the Omen, like you have a lot more experience and like exposure to it than like I do. For me, I have like
Mhm.
I think I have two versions of the game. I have Borderlands 2 and I think I have like no, I have like the it's like one of the triple like combo games that they've had in which it's like a
Oh,
collection
one,
of
two,
like
and the
multiple
pre-sequel.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I have that and I've played it a little bit and I like my exposure. I like, you know, the game as much as I played of it, but it's not as like deep and like it's in terms of exposure as it is. I have seen
Yeah.
like recently how like people have kind of turned on the games because like the humor has not aged well and it just kind of is stuck in that like 2014-esque era of like humor of like he's right behind me, isn't he, type like humor. um
Exactly.
and so I've seen that and I definitely acknowledge it. For me, like I feel like honestly, I felt like the trailer for it was not that bad. Like, obviously, it's not like following a lot of like the canon stuff that the games have, and not to say that it looks. I'm not saying that it looks great by any means. Like, it looks like a
Mhm.
good movie for. It looks like a movie pass movie. Like, you know, I got movie. I don't know if you know, but I have movie pass the subscription that like shut down and came back.
Mhm.
The new era of movie pass. It looks like a good movie
Right.
for me to like a good like subscription service movie. Like if you had like AMC A
Oh
List or
yeah,
Movie Club or something, like this is a good movie to see like once with that and like you're good. Um,
I agree.
but like I don't like I'm I'm just gonna wait and see how like the critics receive it, and like I will go see
Mhm.
it and possibly give my thoughts on here. So
Yeah,
see
I
you
mean, hey,
if you end up seeing it, we'll see you in a couple months. We'll see you back on Cake Radio in a couple months.
exactly. I'm down for it.
So that's Alice in
All right.
Borderlands, and then
Yeah.
Abigail. Like we both agree that we like Abigail. Like Abigail is kind of gonna
Oh
be
yes.
it's gonna
Oh,
be it's
I
gonna be a hit.
yeah. I agree. I love the team behind Abigail. I believe. Let me just. I
It's
want
the
to look up
same
the name
team
real
behind
quick.
Scream, right? And like Ready
Yes,
or Not.
Scream and yes. I just need to look them up. What's their name? I know they have like a name, the group, so I just want to make
I
sure I
think
get
it's
that
like
right.
Radio Silence.
Radio Silence
Yeah,
or something like that.
yeah, Radio
Yes, Radio
Silence.
Silence. I am a huge fan of Radio Silence. I love their work.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen like all their films. I love Ready or Not. I love I guess the only film I don't like would be Devil's Due, that like found footage horror movie they made
Mm-hmm.
like in 2014. That one was kind of It was like
Yeah.
But there's stuff in like VHS, Southbound, which is another not analog, anthology horror movie, excuse
Mm-hmm.
me. Ready or Not, Scream 5, Scream 6. I'm a huge fan of their work. I love the way they handle horror, but
Mm-hmm.
also how they handle comedy. And Abigail seems to be a perfect blend of that, the horror part, but also the comedy. And I saw, I've never seen any trailers for it yet until I went to the movies actually.
Nice.
So
Oh, so this
I
is
was
your
sitting there
first
in the
time seeing
theater. Yes, yes, I was sitting in the theater and I was just, I was smiling. I thought it was
it.
funny as hell. I'm like really excited to see it.
Yeah. I'm excited to see it. I mean, for me, like I don't have that exposure to like radio silence as much. Like I've heard a lot of great things about Ready or Not, and a lot of people are going to a lot of people going to attack me, but I have not seen Ready or Not yet. You and I might need to go like you might need to do a rewatch with me
Mhm.
and like watch it with me because I still haven't seen
Yes,
it. And
I
I
will.
definitely it's on the watch list for sure. But I've seen their screams and I've like liked their screams, even though I have some thoughts on I have some to critique, but I
What's your
think that
thoughts on Scream
overall is
5?
good.
Most
Yeah, we have our thoughts, but overall I liked their interpretations of like that franchise to this point, and I'm honestly
Mhm.
looking forward to it. Also, who's that lady? Who's the one lady who's in the Scream movies? Who's in this?
Give me one second. Let me see. Melissa Barrera.
Yes, Melissa Barrera. So for me, I've got, the birds are chirping now because I don't know if you remember, but my thoughts on Melissa Barrera have like kind of changed throughout the years. I remember for the longest
Hmm.
time I like was like I was so indifferent to her, but I was like, oh, this lady can't
Right.
act. I'm like, girl, she can't act. Like she can't act out of the paper bag. I was like, I was low key her hater. I was low key Melissa Barrera hater number one, no shade. But like, I think with the Scream films, and I think especially with the last one that we got, and I think overall how she's handled, and this is outside of her acting, but the good, like some of the good well that she's handled, especially with like the stuff that was going on with Palestine, and
Hmm.
her firing from the Scream movie, and them really like Spyglass really fumbling the ball there with that. I think
Hmm.
her really standing her ground is something that I absolutely respect with that. So she gets my
Yeah.
props with that, and I outside of that, and also the fact that I think she is improving. Like I'm starting to see that she can act a little bit, she can hold her own. I absolutely will be seeing Abigail, and I will be supporting her in this movie. But I also like that cast too. Like there's a lot of good people in that cast.
Oh yeah.
Lay Angus Cloud is in that movie too. Like I want to see one of his last roles. But overall the movie looks good and it looks funny, so I will be seeing that for sure this month.
Yeah, we even have a Giancarlo Esposito there,
Mm-hmm.
like like great fucking cast. Dan Stevens, you know, uh Catherine Newton and everything. Great cast. And even
Yep.
even the little girl playing Abigail, Alicia Weir,
Mm-hmm.
she seems like she's gonna be having a lot of fun in
Yeah,
this
she
role, and
seems
I
like she's
love
gonna have a
that.
lot of fun. Like I'm down to
Like
tune
this is
in.
like she's having so much fun. It looks like in the trailer, and I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Okay, on to the next movie. What was the other? Oh, Tarot. We kind of
Uh,
discussed Tarot a
yeah,
little bit. D-
a little.
It looks. It doesn't look great, but you know,
Yeah,
I like.
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. It looks a little. It looks a little whack. But I will
Mm-mm.
tune in because of what? How do we pronounce her name? Is it Avantika or Avantia? I'm bad with the
I'm not too sure. I know I've been saying Avantika. I know I've been saying that. How to
Avantika.
pronounce?
If we pronounce your name wrong and you
Oh, I'm
sing,
so sorry if we pronounce
if
our.
you
I'm so sorry, Queen.
if you for some reason get to this Cake Radio episode, you hear us mispronounce your name. We love you, girl, but we are so sorry for mispronouncing it if we
We are
did.
so sorry.
But I love her down boots. Like I saw her in Mean Girls, and
Hmm.
I also
Yeah.
like I saw her in Mean Girls and loved her. I also started like tuning into the Max show that she's on, the like the blank lives of college girls, because I can't say that the word on YouTube, but
Oh
yes,
yeah.
she like cameos in that in like one of the seasons. So I like I've been starting to get a little bit invested in her because I think she is great down. But and she's also like she's an actor and in college, so I respect the hustle
Yeah, I know.
as someone who's doing YouTube and in college. So for me, it's like I'm gonna tune into my sister. So I'll tune into this movie even
Yeah.
though it looks a little boring for her. So there's that. It looks
Yeah.
like another
It
movie pass movie. It looks
definitely.
like a movie in which it's like, oh, like we
Yeah.
kind of would pay for, but like not really out of pocket like that, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely giving. You know how I just saw like Imaginary. It's giving
Yeah.
early 2010s movie. It's giving like early to mid 2010s horror movie like Wish Upon,
Oh
all
my,
those types of movies.
yes.
That's really what it's giving.
It really is.
And it's so weird because you have Avantika, you have Jacob Batalon from like,
Yeah.
the
The
Spider-Man
Spider
movies and
Man
everything, which
movies.
is really interesting. It doesn't
Hmm.
seem like a movie he would star in, so that's interesting to see. But you know, it looks like a dumb, fun horror movie, probably really bad, but I might still go see it anyway because again,
Hmm.
I gotta support Avantika. I love her, and I always love a good, bad horror movie to watch and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. What's the next movie on the list? Oh,
Um,
back to black. That Amy Whitehouse biopic, that biopic from
mm,
that lady who is allegedly, but like not like allegedly, but not allegedly, grooming that Aaron Taylor Johnson. Um,
right.
yeah, I'm not feeling it. It's a chop for me, sweetie. So outside of that lady, right? I
Hmm.
just think that a film like this talking about Amy Whitehouse is just a little tasteless. Like I feel like we've already got. It's kind of okay. One, I think it's kind of a similar issue that I felt with the Whitney Houston biopic that we got like last year or a year or two ago, in which like
Hmm.
I feel like we got it too. I feel like we got it too soon. No, like I think that they both, not comparing the two because I think they're both on different levels in terms of like their careers, but I think they both are like really iconic musicians who had tragic endings. Who I feel like we've already had their stories like told before by both their families and by like documentaries that have already done it pretty well. So I don't like for me it's kind of like I don't know why this exists outside of like the crowd of people who are like scared of watching us documentaries, which I don't know why like as someone who makes documentaries down boots, like y'all need to grow up and tune into these documentaries. Like I know y'all hate school. I know y'all hate homework, but like this is not no homework. Lock the fuck in and tune into these documentaries. Like, what's the issue? But like, no, I feel like outside of that, I felt like I feel like it's a little tasteless in that manner, and it's coming out a little bit too soon. Additionally, I wasn't really feeling the trailer. Like, I feel like the direction looks very like bland, and like the color grading on it looks
Hmm.
very like it looks very like bland and like depressing. And obviously, like you couldn't. I'm not saying they should make a really colorful and vibrant like movie on like Amy Winehouse, but like I low key am too.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, well,
Yeah,
I'm asking that they shouldn't have made this movie. That's what I'm asking. But like,
right.
it shouldn't look this like bland and gray and like washed out. You know, like I know it's in Britain and like I guess that's what the country looked like. No shade, but like I, it's a chop for me. I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I personally, and I will admit, I don't have much of an opinion about, I unfortunately I have not listened to much of Amy Winehouse and stuff like that. I do not have much experience with her work.
Mhm.
Um, but I can definitely tell from like what I've seen, seeing stuff on Twitter and everything like that. It definitely just does not look like a movie she deserves. I
Mhm.
feel like she deserves a much better. Again, some people are saying it's coming out way too soon and stuff like that, but I feel if a movie was to be made about her, she, she would deserve a much better attempt than what I've been seeing because
Right.
it does not look good. It does not
Right.
look good,
Not at
and
all.
it's just disappointing.
And it's by the director of 50 Shades of Grey. So
Yeah, wow, wow, great,
also this is
we're
like
in
her
for a big
first.
one.
This is her first film and like her first film that she's directing in like years. So
Wish she wouldn't have.
I don't know, but I know all I
Mm,
know is I'm not seeing it. So there's that. I
yeah.
think we ran through everything. You know.
There were actually two, if you want, unless you wanted to skip because if you want to get to like the spoiler talk and stuff like
What were
that.
the
But
other
I
two?
know. The Watchers for
Oh
me, and then
yeah,
I
the
think you said you
Watchers.
had the
Oh
Strangers,
yeah.
right?
No, I had. Oh yeah, I had the Strangers, and so I had the Strangers, and I also Strangers and the Watchers. I also had Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes too, and like A Quiet Place Day One, but we're not really going
We
to
could
talk
just
about
talk
those.
about those two if you want.
We could just talk about the Watchers and
Okay.
Strangers. So
Okay.
we've talked privately about both films, but for the podcast sake,
Yes.
um, let's start with the Strangers first. Actually.
hmm So as you know, I made it very clear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge fan of the Strangers franchise. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. I I do like, and this is a little controversial maybe, and I know a lot of people might not like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the second one better. Not because it's a better or good movie. I want to make that
Mm-hmm.
clear. I am not sitting here saying that. It's more entertaining to me though. And
Right.
it's like I know you said it wasn't camp enough for you and stuff like that. You kind of felt like it wasn't fun camp. It was kind of like camp. Me, I thought it was fun camp. I There's a lot of funny stuff in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a dumb, silly sequel that instead of going from the first movie where it was a lot more slow and like serious, this one tried to be like amp it up with like being kind of wacky and crazy. And when a movie does that, I just think it's really funny. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, so, but honestly, even the first one, a lot of people say it's like a cult classic. It's kind of like it was like a sleeper hit and everything like that. I don't agree. I think both films are bad. I don't like them. I love the concept. I love home invasion horror, but they're more funny than anything to me, and I just can't help it. I just keep thinking like when because we rewatched the first one at some point
We
together,
did. We
and
did. Well, yeah, we did. We sure did. That was a time.
yeah, I just can't help but imagine every time they do something, they're off in the distance just giggling about it. Like oh my god, like when he was like in the
No,
car and like
literally.
she touched his back, they're like giggling, oh my god, did you see the way he act? Like I'm sorry, I don't think it's good. And the trailer for this new one, it's not instilling any confidence for me this time around either. It's really not.
For me, and I feel like my opinion has changed on it because this was the first time I saw the trailer in my theaters. But I've seen the
hmm
trailer online before, and I think for me, I don't know what happened. I don't know if my like frontal lobe developed while seeing between me seeing it online and me seeing it in theaters. But like for me, I'm now no longer excited about seeing these new movies in theaters. Like, cause I saw for me I saw the movies. I remember seeing The Watchers years ago with my mom, like way back when. Not in theaters, but I remember like being at our house and like going downstairs and being like,
hmm
hey, she was just watching. I'm like, oh, like what are you watching? She's like, oh, The Strangers. And she's like, oh, it's a great movie. Like you should watch it. And I sat my ass down and listened and watched it with her. And I remember recently, since we knew that these new movies were coming out, I watched the second one for the first time, and then watched rewatched the first one with you. So for me, I actually really don't like the second one. So we're on, we've discussed this before, but we're both on opposite ends about that.
Right.
I think for me, the first film was a lot more like tastefully unserious. Like I feel like it was dumb, yes, because like, but I also
Yes.
feel like home invasion horror as like or like thrillers as a genre is like dumb in itself. Like it's definitely a concept that
Mm,
should be that is scary, but I feel like the films that I've seen that we've gotten just haven't really been like haven't really made it fully terrifying just yet. And like
right.
um and maybe that's for a good thing. Maybe they're not really trying to scare people into like really shitting themselves about being at their house, but like I feel like we haven't really got anything that strong, but I think the first film really did was like it did a fairly good job with the concept,
There was
and
effort.
there
There
was
was
an
effort put
effort,
in.
and I think even when in the points in which like I think I felt like it was fairly unserious on its own. Like I think, as you mentioned, the part in which he just touches that man's back and then disappears. Like like what I liked about the first one was how like the strangers as like villains were like absolute like they were trolling like they were some
Oh
trolling
yeah.
as
Yeah.
individuals like they were like mean spirited and just
Yeah.
doing a little trolling like being silly, and I think that that was what made the film like hilariously enjoyable for me. But the second film, I feel like it was kind of I feel like we see it we see the film swapped. Like I feel like for you, you see the second film is taking it like unseriously. I feel like the second film was a little bit like it took itself seriously in terms of being unserious, if that makes sense. Like
Mm. No, interesting.
I feel like there's just points in which like the moments that you would see like the cliches were just like disastrously like cliched like and or like
Mm.
moments where that existed in the film were just like really stupid, like the one scene in which like the son is like helping the daughter out against one of the strangers and is like
Yep.
has a weapon, and
Yes.
the girl is like, what are you doing, like use it, and he just like freezes like
I know. It's so bad.
like it's so bad. And I feel like it doesn't really go as hard of being unserious with the strangers as like the first one did. So for me, I feel like the first one was better than the second one. I just really did not enjoy
Mm.
the second one. But
Right.
after seeing the trailer for this new movie in theaters, I'm not really feeling it. Like I feel like I'm kind of at the point with like this movies as I am with like Saw, but worse. Like with the Saw movies, it's kind of like okay, like we've seen in where like the movies can be like good, and the films have been in this sort of A B schedule in which is like, oh, like one Saw movie will be good and the second one will be like really horrible or like it'll just suck. By the way,
Hmm.
I've heard down the grapevine that the new Saw that's supposed to be coming out this year might be a little bit rough. So buckle up.
Ooh.
Um but with the strangers, like I feel like the sunk cost fallacy is kicked in already, but these two films I've seen already, so I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna just see this third one and see what it gives. But
Mhm.
the script looks really rough. Like the acting sounds very like feels very wooden, and
Yes,
I'm just not gagged. Like I'm not gagged anymore.
it's
So it's just kind of like
yeah, like listen, I've told you, I have nothing against Madeline Petch. I have nothing against her. You know,
is
she
that the
seemed
actress
very
in the
nice.
movie? Is that the one who's
Yes,
from
yes,
Riverdale?
yes.
Oh yeah.
I have no ill will against her. I think she seems like a great person. She seems very sweet and friendly, but sh I just don't think she's that great of an actress.
Mm-hmm.
And in a horror movie, being a main character in a horror movie where you gotta like be scared and show a lot of emotion, I just, I, I really don't think she can do it. And the trailers have shown me the trailers just haven't really changed that for me. I just don't think she's that strong of an actress, unfortunately.
I don't think she is either, and I'm kind of worried for her having to do this for like three films. Because the
Mhm.
thing is, she going to do this for 3 films. Like we gonna be super sick of
Yeah,
her, and they're all supposed to be releasing this year. That's what the scary part is. Now,
right.
I know I was digging at Lionsgate earlier, but I also love Lionsgate so much because hashtag ad. I'm joking. Like I love Lionsgate so much because they do be giving me some free tickets to movies every now and again. Speaking of, no, like Lionsgate really be giving me the hookup sometimes because like they just them and Adam tickets just gave me like free tickets to see the new Guy Ritchie movie that like the Ministry
Oh
of
wow.
Ungentlemen, yeah, that movie that's coming out in like a few weeks.
Yeah.
I have free tickets to see it early, so I'm seeing it early like
Oh wow.
this coming weekend. So I
Dang.
like thank you Lionsgate. It's like thank you Lionsgate, but I'm still going to critique
Well,
you
it
on
will.
Lionsgate. Like I will be seeing it
Exactly.
for sure, but I
Tough
will also
love.
be like these critiques are not going to be soft. Um,
Exactly.
so like for me, I'm just like I'm hoping they give me it's like I'm hoping they give me some free tickets because I don't I don't want to pay to see this, but like I'm still gonna see it, just see at least the first one of this third of this trilogy that they trying to push. I don't know how that's gonna
Yeah.
go, but
I might as well too.
like
Even
it's
though I'm not,
like
even
some
though it
cause
doesn't look like my
fallacy is
cup of tea.
present with this. Like
Yeah. Might have to do a hotter flop on that too. Who knows?
who knows
Even though I probably know what the outcome might be, but
if y'all the people listening to this or watching this on YouTube, like listening wherever y'all listening to this on, like if y'all want these, if y'all want more hotter flops, baby, put them upcoming movies y'all want us to see in the comments, and we will get back to you.
yeah.
um, and but yeah, and then we could last but not least the Watchers. We're already at like an
Mm.
hour time recording this, but
Yeah.
like,
Let's keep it short. I'm interested to see it. I can
mm,
definitely tell that I don't want to say M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. Let me look up her name real quick because that sounds so like ew. Like no, I want to say her name. Like
nepotism kind of get
um
this.
Ashana Night
Ashana,
Shyamalan.
yeah.
She she is definitely taking a lot of like inspiration from her father's work, which is really cool to see. I love that
Mm-hmm.
because whatever you can say about M. Night Shyamalan, as rocky as his career has been, he has a very distinct visual style, and I
Absolutely.
think that she is replicating that very well in this movie. And I'm
Absolutely.
interested to see it.
I
I'm
also think
interested to
that
see how.
there's also points in which I think she's making it a little bit of her own too. So I think
Oh
I
yeah,
definitely
most
appreciate that.
definitely.
Like it's not in it's kind of in the case of like nepotism, in which it's like by name. It's almost by name and some visual
Mhm.
sense only. Like I think she's still kind of like I'm intrigued to see
Yeah.
how like she makes it like her own truly. And there's moments in that trailer that's like, okay, this is kind of like this is not an M Night Shyamalan film, but like
Oh, most
you
definitely.
feel some of the vibes present, but it's not that.
Mhm.
So I'm also looking forward to seeing it. But I will say like I think with M Night Shyamalan, and I will raise this as like um a possible issue with Ashana is that I think for M Night, his direction isn't horrible for the most part. I feel like
His
I
script.
think the scripts that he gets is
Yes.
just can just
Yes.
be really rough. So I hope that the script that Shauna has gotten with the Watchers is really good. Um, but we will be watching, and we might do a hotter flop again. If y'all want this hotter flop, maybe drop it in the
Yeah.
comments or do the little things with the podcast platforms. You can do it. um, but now we could just dig into the spoilers.
Mhm.
Now that we've done this little intermission talking about previews of the upcoming movies coming soon to your local movie theater, um, we're gonna dig into the last but not least part, the spoiler review of the first Omen. We're ringing it back in, for final thoughts, and then doing our closing. Again, spoiler
Mhm.
review. So if you have not seen the movie yet and you care to see the movie and not be spoiled, um, click off the episode, you know, tune into your homework, lock in, get back to work,
Get back on your Zoom,
get back on
do
your
what you need to do.
Zoom. But like, we will be discussing these spoilers, so let's just hop into it.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. I guess where I want to start is possibly a positive and negative that I have.
mhm.
I like how the film with the deaths in the movie replicated the original, but also did it in its own original way. A
Can
lot of
we
the
say
deaths,
deaths on
like
here? I gotta
Ooh,
clock this. I'm like, can we say
unalive.
that? Ooh, I don't. You know what? Because
Oh,
I was because
actually,
you
there.
know for the past couple. Let me sidestep right quick because I was watching. I've been watching Emergency Intercom lately. That
Mhm.
podcast with like Enya
Yeah,
and and that's been like my favorite podcast for like a good minute. Now that I've been like bitching the episodes, they've been saying like I feel like they've been able to get away with it, but I also don't know if they're like able to get any of these their videos monetized
right.
because they really be saying some outlandish shit on there. So like
All right.
I feel like we might need to be careful. We might need to do what them Twitter
Got an
girls be
idea.
doing and being like,
Okay.
oh,
Mhm.
unalived or like
Okay.
when
I
they
got the perfect one.
disappear, like
Mm.
for the monetization sake.
Right. All right. I got the perfect word to use then.
Oh wait,
Okay. So let
hold
me
on.
start.
Now if y'all to the audience now if y'all want these if y'all want these uncensored clips, if y'all want us to just be saying stuff, um I might be launching a Patreon soon. So
Mm,
if y'all want these uncensored clips and episodes and y'all want these unfiltered thoughts that we cannot say on YouTube and Spotify and these other platforms, let us know if you want to tune into this Patreon and throw a couple bucks our way. So there's that.
yeah.
But back to what you were saying.
Right. So I really like the way that the movie replicated the game ends from the original. Um, 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 because let me compose myself. Um,
Bitch.
so yeah, I, but I like how it tried to replicate them from the original.
Hmm.
Because in the beginning with the priest, you have the pole that falls,
From
and it
heaven,
like
yeah.
yes, and then you
Yeah, that
have
was pretty dope. I love the one
yeah.
that happens afterwards, in which it's like the burning scene with the
See,
lion
I
that
actually
pays
feel
homage.
different about
I really like that one. I liked how it paid homage to the original film, in which it was like, "This is all for
that.
you."
Yeah,
Like,
I do like that part. I do like it. It's just the reason why I'm not a huge fan of it compared to the other ways they do it in this movie is due to
mm-hmm,
the fact that it felt like because the other ones they do different things. Again, they replicate it, but they do it like in its own way.
mm-hmm,
This one, it kind of just felt like again, it was a homage, an homage to the original. So it's like I understand
mm-hmm.
the point of it and I respect it, but while the other ones tried to be creative, it feels like this one they're just like, all right, let's have the original game end, but also let's have her cause fire, and then
Yeah,
that'll be like all we. I was like, it just felt kind of a little lazy to me, but
yeah, but
it's kind of like
I feel like
anyway.
with the film, there's definitely been like kind of there was a balancing act. Like there's some things in which they pay homage. By the way, I think there's a lot of parts in this film in which I feel like the studio got involved and was like, you need to put this in here to pay homage to the original. Like I definitely think
Mhm.
there's clear studio involvement in the film. I
Oh
think that
yes,
that is
yes,
definitely one of like the rougher aspects of the film. But
yeah,
I think that there's definitely parts in the film that tried again, as I touched on in the non-spoiler review, that touch on that like try to connect itself to the original or like pay homage to it. But I feel it's like
yeah,
kind of. I think the part for me was like the ending in which like they name drop Damien. Like I feel like that was just so
mhm.
forced. They were like, "Oh, he has a name. Your son." They're calling him Damien. Like, I really don't give a fuck. Like I'm so sorry. Like for me,
Yeah.
it's just like I think that when I think the reason why that one scene that I talked about earlier with like the "this is all for you," like it didn't feel like forced to me. Like I knew it was like, oh, yeah, like for me it didn't feel forced because it was like, oh, like people would have only understood that this was like something
Yeah,
if they saw the original. So for me it
no,
was
yeah, I
like,
agree.
and for me it was like, oh, like maybe this is like a thing that happens, but like I really appreciated. I think that that was a moment that was like, oh, like this is homage, and obviously it's like very similar to the original. They just kind of spiced it up a little bit. They blazed it
Mhm.
up, but I really liked it. I love it. I love it. I
Fair
love
enough.
it.
um Going into and maybe we're because we're just kind of jumping around. We don't really have much structure
Yeah.
regarding spoiler, but I definitely felt there were so many moments where I felt like the movie was gonna end towards the end, but then it
Mm-hmm.
kept going. And
Yes.
that
That
That was how I
I
felt.
forgot to even. I absolutely no. I'm
Yeah.
sorry for cutting you off, but
Yeah, because that's how I felt when like no, you're good, you're good. But it's like that's how I felt because when she gave birth to Damien and
mm-hmm.
then there was like the twin girl, I was like, okay. I was like, and then like she kills the one priest guy. Gosh, I
She
can't I
does.
need
She
to
does
watch my
what?
wording. I know.
She does what?
When she game ends the priest, my fault. Um and and then it's like eventually, they subdue her and everything like that, and they're like, all right, set the place on fire, leave the two of them to burn and stuff like that. And it's like, I was thinking, okay, so it's gonna end like that. It's gonna
mm-hmm.
end with like, she tried her best to like stop it from happening. It didn't work, and but then we see the little girl. I forgot her name. It's like I can't really remember what it is, unfortunately. But
We're just gonna move on
then we
from.
see her,
Mm-hmm.
and then then she ends up saving her
Right.
and the baby, and I was like, oh, I was like, okay, and I thought it was gonna end at that
That was
point
the
where
part
it's
that really
like,
like was kind of like because I think because I remember I saw the original, so I was like, and then the
yeah,
original they like opened it up being like, oh, like the mother passed away, like the mother is just not here anymore. Um,
yeah,
I was entirely going and expecting that it was just gonna be like similar to how the other Omen films were, in which is like a very tragic ending, but like they still, the villains prevail. And as you said, I thought it was gonna end there with that like ending shot of like her, in the like under like the secret church as it's like
yeah,
going down. But as you said, like the girl pops up and saves both her and the daughter, and we're kind of like, oh, okay. And then you think again, as you said, you thought it was gonna end there, and then it's like the additional scene of like them kind of being like a found family, raising the daughter
yeah.
together.
Because what I was expecting was when she saved her, I thought it was gonna end like with them, like, because then they show like the hot, like it's the referencing the original, like,
Yeah.
oh, there's government guy, his wife's gonna give birth, but then there's gonna be an accident. I thought it was gonna
Mm-hmm.
end after that, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. And then it like they showed the like the snowy mountainside. So I was like, oh, it's still going because
Mm-hmm.
I was already gonna be confused if they ended it with like her living. And I was like, oh, I was like, okay, well, how does that get wrapped up? Like, how, when does that come into play? Like with the first movie and all, the original. But
Mm-hmm.
then they show that snowy mountainside. I'm like, oh, I'm like, okay. It's because it's like like you referenced in the original when they say like the mother game ended and stuff like that. Um, it's because then they check the grave in the original and it's the jackal,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, whoa, it was like, oh my god, the mother, the fake mother, it was like a jackal, which proves that Damien was the Antichrist and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt, I can tell why they're doing it because they obviously want to make sequels, like
Right.
that's obvious with the way they're setting it up. But I'm just kind of confused
Me
how
too. That's what
and like
I'm
where
glad you brought that up because I've been meaning to dig into that. I don't know how they're going to like. Well, one, I'm not too sure they're going to be doing a sequel because like
it
numbers.
is
I'm a numbers here.
earning a
I'm
little
a numbers
bit.
person here. It's not. This might be one of the
Yeah,
horror flops that might be happening because it has $30 million
it's
budget.
earning a little
We
lower.
don't know. We don't know the marketing, but it's Disney that's distributing it through 20th Century Fox, and they don't know how to market horror movies for real. But like they kind of spend pretty penny on marketing sometimes, and it's
Yeah.
tracking to like open in like the single digits in terms of millions this
Yeah,
weekend. So
lower
it's
estimates
like
than it was because it was like wasn't it like estimated to make like 10 to 15 million and then that dropped to like 8 million or something?
yes. And I think that's partly
Yeah.
because one, like they waited so long for like the reviews and stuff to drop. Like they waited until like opening weekend for that to happen. And two, I just feel like
Mhm.
there's been mixed audience reaction. So there's that. So I honestly don't know if they're gonna do a sequel. If they do a sequel, well, um anyways, if they do make a sequel, I do think that they will try to do it maybe streaming only. Mind you, this was one of those films in which like it was supposed to go to Hulu, straight to Hulu, but they decided to move it to theaters. It's one of those movies that Disney did. Um I definitely appreciate that they sent this to theaters because this is definitely a movie that should be seen on the big screen.
Oh yeah.
But
No, definitely.
I don't know if the sequels are gonna like make it there or if they'll even do sequels. But if they do sequels, just like you, like I don't know what they're gonna do. Like for me, I was thinking because that was what I was thinking about for the most part. I'm like, how are they gonna like try following this up if they have the chance to follow this up? Like, are we gonna have like? Because I feel like it could go in two different ways. Like, is it gonna be them following, the mother as he like tries to stop Damien, which doesn't make
Yeah, it's like a
sense,
Halloween 2018 situation. Like,
right? Or is it gonna be like her trying to like live her life and protect herself as like the church tries to like game end her?
like an action horror movie
Like an
sequel or
action
something.
horror
Like
movie, which low key would be like that. Low key would be
that would
badass.
kind of
I would kind of
that would
sit and
kind of be
tune in
cool.
like y'all Disney. Bob Iger, if you watching this right now, I don't know why you watching this, but if you watching this episode, you let's make a first Omen sequel, but it's an action horror thriller film. Like I think open the pocketbook a little bit. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, the ending I wasn't the biggest fan of, definitely. I was kind of like, again, there was like two moments where I thought the movie was going to end and then it just kept going, where I was
Mhm.
like, oh, like, okay, interesting. But, again, whether the director comes back for the sequels, I don't think she probably will, but, I don't know. It depends. But,
Mhm.
you know, I like to, I hope that, not I hope, but, I'm glad that she got to make this movie and show a lot of her talent, and I can't wait to see, like, more of that future of how she applies that to her future projects and stuff like
Absolutely.
that. Um, Definitely, I think if she gets like a little bit of a better script, I definitely think she could do something like really, really good.
Yeah. And I feel
And I
Loki.
guess,
Now that I think about it, if
yeah.
they do a sequel, I
Mhm.
could see them kind of going in a similar route that like they did with the Haunting in Venice. Which I don't know. Have you seen those Hercule Poirot films that they did?
I have not seen the Gay Men on Orgasms. Gay
I
Men
think I
on the
think
Nile. I have
okay,
I've not seen
I
any of
think we
those.
can be able to drop this bit, man. Like
Okay,
I feel
okay,
like with those titles at least. I think with because I
okay.
actually love those films. Well, I take that back.
I haven't seen them. I
I
do need to
love
watch.
Murder. I love the Orient Express film. I also love Haunting in Venice. I hate Death on the Nile. Like that film was
Well, I'm
actually
not
atrocious.
surprised. I'm
Yeah,
not
because
surprised.
Gal Gadot is in it, and I don't think she can act. But that is there's a whole slew of reasons for why I don't like that movie. But there what they did with Haunting in Venice was like they gave that one a lower budget than they gave the other films because
Mhm.
they were kind of try to make it cheaper for like and potentially try to make as much money as they could on it because shrinking returns on the films.
Right.
But I also think like the reason they made that third film after Nile came out and did not kind of underperformed was I think they were like trying to I guess apologize to the director for how they kind of held on to it and like shoved it out during the pandemic because it was supposed to release as like theater shut down and then they just kind of
Mhm.
delayed it and then just kind of pushed it out. Um, so I definitely obviously it's gonna be a different pretense with the first Omen because it doesn't have any of those like issues.
Mhm.
It's just gonna be like, oh, like how does this film perform? Like, okay, is it somewhat profitable or like what? How unprofitable is it? And does it warrant a sequel type thing? Um, if they do a sequel, I could see them doing a sequel with a cheaper budget because it's like 30 million now.
Mhm.
I could see them trying to do it for like 20 million.
Yeah. And I guess while we mentioned writing, I guess we can talk about the twist in the movie, which
Mm-hmm.
again was very obvious from the start,
Yeah,
I
it
feel.
was very obvious.
Yeah, it's revealed that our main character, there's a whole conspiracy going on in the church, that they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to birth the Antichrist. And we have our big red herring, the little girl,
Mm-hmm.
who, is being suspected eventually in the movie. It said, she's going to give birth to the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
And our main character tries to protect her and stuff like that. And eventually we do see that the little girl is, born from, evil because we see
Mm-hmm.
like the 666 on the inside of her mouth and stuff like
Right.
that. Um, but I kind of already knew it was going to be a red herring because I feel like they kind of gave it away a little too much, especially
Mm-hmm.
with like when the main character is like she talks about how she had visions when she was younger.
Yeah.
She had she's like I was just like you. when I was younger and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then also, there's also just a lot of things that show, like when she first meets the little girl kind of like grabs her face and licks it. And then when
Mm-hmm.
she's at the club with that guy, she licks his face. I was kind of
Yeah.
like, okay. I was like, okay, that it's gonna be she's gonna be the one who gives birth to Damien, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not gonna be that girl. It was kind of obvious. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it was really obvious.
Yeah. For me, it was like I think for me it was the scenes as you touched on, which is like, oh, like I had visions like those too. I'm like, oh, y'all are similar, huh? Like, oh, y'all sisters. I think the other scene that kind of gave it away for me was like when they kind of hinted that like the little girl was supposed to be giving birth, and our lead was like, she can't do that, like she's too young. I'm like, well, they're going the moral route for this, which thank God, because we didn't want to see this any other way.
Yeah,
But like,
yeah.
since they're going the moral route, it could not be her, so it has to be the lead. And like it really was
Mhm.
just like even more and more obvious once it came to like them like looking through, the papers, and them really finally doing that final reveal as to her being, who's supposed to be giving who got the baby. If you the mama, and if you the mama and you ain't got your baby and your grandma got the baby, then you're not the mama. Your grandmama the baby.
You gotta take this to fraternity court.
No, literally.
Um, yeah, again, uh, maybe they weren't trying to keep it, but I don't know. I don't even want to say that because the way they reveal it makes it seem like, whoa, who could have? This is a moment in history. Who could have seen this coming? It's like I did.
Well, yes.
um, but it didn't ruin it for me. I know it maybe again. It's just the script. I feel like the
Mhm.
script it was strong at points. Don't get me wrong; it's
No,
not a
it
terrible
was strong
script.
at points, absolutely.
Yeah,
But there's
but
just
it
like
definitely had
weak
its weaker
moments.
moments, and it was
Yeah,
definitely with that twist. It was
yeah,
definitely a weak moment.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so plot twist. If you go see this movie, well, I mean, you probably already have if you're listening to this, but you just don't care to go see it. But
Literally.
yeah, I feel like anybody going to watch it is gonna get the twist right away. I feel like people are gonna easily know. They kind of make it a little obvious, unfortunately.
Guys, if you watch the movie and you didn't get the twist, put it in the comments or like send us an email and we'll laugh at you next episode. Um and on that note, we're gonna wrap this episode up. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for being a guest on this episode and
Of
being a
course.
part of this first episode of the second season of Cake Radio. Any final words?
Um, not much really. Just honestly, I think like I said earlier, if you're still debating whether to see this movie, I don't know if people skip to the end. I know we just had spoiler talk, but I think it was a good movie. And if you skip to the end instead of listening to the spoiler talk and stuff like that, I think you should go see it. I think it's worth it, especially to support the director's first feature film. But I definitely hope to do more of these in the future because this was really fun. I love discussing movies, especially horror movies and stuff like that. So it's great
Mhm.
to have that back and forth with each other on
Yeah,
like new releases.
yeah. I definitely had fun making this episode. I'm glad to have the bestie on the episode. Um, the other besties, y'all don't notice if y'all got them invites. Come to this podcast now. Like, come on, y'all got the invites. Doors open. Come
But
on,
y'all see
bitches.
on.
With y'all seatbelts on. But no, like, thank you so much again. Thank you so much for being on this episode. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, of course.
Hopefully, the girls tune in. Even if the girls tune in, I'm
Mhm.
hopefully gonna be doing more. Harder flops and help possibly having you on other episodes talking about like other topics. But this has
I'm always
been
available.
yes, but this has been Cake Radio by Cake Dive, a Cake Dive Made It podcast. Um, and thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys are watching this or listening to this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. And if you are listening to this on your favorite podcast platforms, be sure to, follow the podcast, turn on the notifications for future episodes, and give us a positive rating because that really helps. And share it with your friends, your family, and your Antichrist baby. Yeah, so that has been it. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Have a good one.